Drive decision-making with system data and analytics, and I love data. That's my favorite thing, and when you can get your company to a point where you can manage your company from your data and make informed decisions, that's amazing. So don't fight the system. Set your system up according to best practices to make it easier to get to standard reports.
Digital solutions track, and yippee, hooray for us. We've covered two really amazing meaty topics. What we're going to talk about is process playbook, and it really is about implementation, solutions, because it's one thing to get you to the point where you say yes, you want to, move forward. And then we all know we get into implementation, and then the fun really starts. I mean, it's just giggles all the way. In my many years of working with builders on implementing a variety of solutions, sometimes they don't go well, right? Sometimes they actually fall out and they fail. But I've got news for you. It's not the stuff. It's not the systems. It's not the tools. It's not the data integration. We get all hyped about that stuff. It's actually about the humans, right? And we can do such a great job of getting in our own way. What's interesting to me is we finally make the right decision. We're excited. We start brainstorming. And then we just start kind of selling ourselves out of it. And we lose sight of the quest. And we forget why we're actually doing it. And we start kind of undoing some things in terms of, hey, this is great, we're gonna go implement this thing, whatever this thing is, but we need all of our systems to connect in real time, always in sync, blah, 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 blah. And we create kind of these impossible Gordian knots, and of course that should be your quest, if you will. We all want all of our systems to tie and work together, but we kind of put these barriers and these expectations of things that we've never had before, but suddenly because we're implementing something new, we decide it has to be 100% perfect before we go forward. We'll say things like, well, let's wait till we switch out all of our other systems before we start, which is impossible. You're always switching out systems over time. Things are in flux, right? But we can put these barriers between us and implementation. This one I love. Let's wait till we are not too busy, because we've just got too many sales right now, right? We're just so busy, we can't do it. And then the next minute, well, let's wait till we're out of this sales slowdown, right? And things are in a slump, so we couldn't possibly do it right now. I swear, there's this magic moment between the cycle of home building where perhaps you're ready, right? It's the perfect moment. There is no perfect moment, right? And I've put this slide up. We covered it in the keynote yesterday. Really got to check our cognitive biases, because we can sound super smart and we can talk ourselves out of anything. And a lot of times we reward people for being so smart that they can find the no. And we have to find the yes. And especially as you're looking at new solutions and new tools that you're gonna implement, you've got to be open and you've got to figure out how do you get to the yes and how do you make that work. So with that, I'm going to kick off our session, and I guarantee you nobody on the panel put that ugly creature on their slide like I did. So I'm going to start off with just some real quick introductions, have each of our panelists, we'll start with Paul down there, just a quick 20, 30 second, intro bio of who they are.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Robbins, and I am the Vice President of Sales and Solutions at Hyphen Solutions. And it's a privilege to get to speak with you this afternoon. So thank you very much for your time.
I am Amy King, also with Hyphen Solutions, Director of Bricks ERP Services. I've been with Hyphen for 7 years, but I come from the home building side. I've been in it 30 years and been in the Bricks ERP system for 30 of those years in all different facets of it.
My name is Monica Wheaton, and I'm the Vice President of Customer Success for ECI. And so I work in the residential home construction across all 9 of our products now that we've acquired Avid last November. And I'm really excited. I love my job because I get you after implementation. So I get to work with builders to make sure they're leveraging their system in the best way and getting the most out of it and the most return for their investment. So
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sheila, and I am the Mark Systems Specialist for French Brothers Homes out of South Central New Mexico. And my one and only job is to manage the system that we use on the ERP side. And Lasso, we use several of the ECI products, and I manage all the data that goes in so that all the data that comes out makes sense and it is what it's supposed to be.
So there is a little method to the madness in terms of the folks that we've assembled today, and we're going to kind of go in this order because it's not just about the implementation itself. There are things that you need to do in that pre-decision mode before you even say yes to implementing that will set you up for success in implementation, and that's what Paul's going to cover. So without any further delay, I'm going to turn it over to Paul. I'll pass this down. We'll slide that down.
Again, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you. I've had the privilege of carrying out a sales career for most of my professional life, and I absolutely love it. Some time with some very large organizations and some smaller organizations. But one of the things that I've really come to work close with Amy and the sales team at Hyphen is we want to ensure that we're setting the builder up for success on the implementation as we go through the sales cycle, as we go through and you evaluate the products and the platforms that you have available to you. So one of the things I really want to touch on real quick is, when Hyphen got its start, early 2000s, we were really a one-trick pony. It was Hyphen Build Pro, Supply Pro. And then for 15 years, we did a real good job with that. And then through our customers, they were like, do y'all have a ERP platform or, your back office accounting, purchasing, finance, general ledger? And so when we acquired a company, Traviston and Zybertech, it was a big transformational change from the implementation side and the things that we had to do to set ourselves up for success, but really set the builder up for success and really help them identify and go through what does it mean to make these changes, right? Because these are big changes, big decisions that you have to make and consider when you change from, say, QuickBooks and you're going from a 50-unit builder to a 100-unit builder, 250-unit, whatever that may be, right? So one of the things I wanted to really touch on is understanding what your current limitations are and that desired future state that you feel is where you need to go, right? So documenting that, having that available, knowing and working through your organizations with the different functional department heads to understand specifically what are those gaps that we have today? What can technology and the platform do to help the builder? By knowing what the future state looks like, that really sets you up for success as you go through that process and understand that. So that really is key in the very beginning, I feel like, to really set your organization up for success. As you move forward with that, it's really identifying also those functional stakeholders within the organization that carry those responsibilities that you will lean on to help you through this transition. It's not an easy thing to do, to move from one platform to another or to move some of the siloed software along the way. So it becomes really critical to identify those functional stakeholders and know who's going to be there with you to do that, and really to help document and manage that process. So along the way, whether you know up front that you have a job to schedule a number of different conversations with the vendors that are available to you, but it becomes really critical to really make sure that you've got time set aside to take it. It's really important that you take the time to really schedule out how far you want to do this. And really, we were talking earlier, there's no easy time to do this, right? So really what you need to be thinking about, I feel like through the years of experience and working with the builders and their success and setting it up, is really knowing the strengths and the capabilities of the certain vendors and working with them closely to understand, well, what are they really providing us that's different? What are the gaps, right? Understanding that. And then as you go through that evaluation process, how you set those meetings up and you schedule that becomes really critical. If you're going to work with one particular vendor and you know that you've got a number of conversations to take place, right? we really recommend that you break up those conversations that is accounting or purchasing and finance into 1 2-hour session. And then maybe you've got your construction operations, that's a 2-hour session. But it's important that you have a plan and a schedule for doing that, while also keeping that fresh on each functional stakeholder's mind about the segment that's important to them. So how you set that up becomes critical. Managing that is very important so that you maintain some consistency through that process. What's very important, I feel like, that a builder really needs to really monitor is understanding like the discovery and the review and understanding what the platform that you're looking at really helps you from a requirement standpoint. Knowing the requirements, building the requirements, and then aligning those requirements with the different product demonstrations that you will experience through the evaluation become very important. So aligning those requirements to the vendor and moving forward so that you see how that demonstrates and takes your data potentially, if you set up a sandbox or other environments that become very important so you can see what your data looks like and how it moves within the system. But when I was speaking earlier about how we evolved into not just Build Pro, Supply Pro and a siloed application, but into more of a platform that it's encompassing all the integration from all the different products, was to understand how do we deploy this, right? So we've worked closely with professional services. It's key to really have those conversations long before you sign an agreement to understand what is it that you are implementing, what is it that are the requirements, is that mapped correctly to the statement of work that's going to be executed by one of the vendors that you're working with, and knowing that you might have potentially enhancements along the way that you're going to want to account for. So it becomes really important to pull in professional services so that it provides a level of confidence and commitment to the builder to know that, hey, we're moving forward, we've got the right agreement documented, we know exactly what it is we're going to do, and we've got the right team ready to meet that request. Also, I want to make sure that we're talking about a top-down approach. A lot of times we see in working with Amy and her team that we will help to set expectations that if the ownership is behind it, we need access to those resources. I wish we could say we could walk in and just, deploy this overnight, but it takes time. And the reason it takes time is because we want your input. We want to make sure we're driving to the things that you need that will drive your business so you can extract the value out of the software for which you were just licensed. So it becomes very important to make sure that from a top-down approach that your leadership team is committed to the project, and we see a great deal of success when that approach is taken. And the last thing I'll just leave you with is that we have a kickoff from the time that there is from licensing and signing an agreement to when we have that kickoff. But we want to make sure that the builder understands all the success criteria that's set up in order to make sure that we meet our commitment to you. We're not a professional services organization, we are a software company. So it's paramount that the implementation go the way we described it, that we negotiated, and we documented on paper so that we can make sure we have a happy and a successful client implemented. So those are some of the key things I thought were very important to what we feel like is a successful implementation for the builder. So
I love this, and I think in a way what you're saying is you need to go slow to go fast, right? Don't rush, to the yes. And sometimes in sales we're like, oh yes, let's get to the yes, yes. Right? But that could be the wrong yes, right? But it's actually taking the time to really understand. And I think what's key is the service providers and the software providers, they can help guide you through this because they've seen this a million times and they've seen how companies have done it really well and then companies maybe not who have done it so well. So it's refreshing in a way to hear from sales to say we've got to slow down and do this right. Otherwise, Amy has messes to clean up, which she
without a
doesn't
question.
Need. Yeah. All right, well, let's move on then. Let's assume we're a go. We're going to go forward with this solution. And now what do we do?
Okay, so we're going to go through implementation. So first of all, ERP implementation isn't just a tech project, okay? It's a business transformation. It's the foundation for smarter decisions in your business. It unlocks team efficiency and preparing your business for what's next. And it's a big deal, and it shouldn't be taken lightly. The ERP implementation kickoff, aligning teams and systems with your ERP's end-to-end home building solution, establishing the project team. If this is like a big part for me, because you don't understand how many builders don't have people readily available to do an implementation. And it's very important. You don't purchase this software and it just mysteriously start working. You guys have to build it. And we are going to rely heavily on y'all. So build a cross-functional project team with engaged, accountable members and strong leadership support, including your executives. We need everybody to know where this implementation is and how it's progressing over the time limit that we've put in place. Avoid common pitfalls like overloading your staff, lack of leadership involvement, and excluding key users from early stages like demos. It is very important that you include the key people in the demo because I can tell you from experience how many people get on calls with implementation and have no idea what was purchased. So I find it very advantageous that everybody at least be able to have a video or some sort to watch the demo and understand what they're getting into. Defining roles and responsibilities, for all project team members, to avoid confusion, make sure you have somebody who's responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed, and that person is following the implementation through the entire process. Set clear expectations and guidelines. Establish deliverables and participation expectations for team members to keep the project on track, ensuring that everything is completed before moving forward. We set very clear timelines, and we expect you guys to stay on task and keep that implementation moving.
Yeah, and before you move on, Amy, the RACI matrix, I love that you utilize that, but I want to spend just a few seconds on it to make sure people understand what that means, and I'll try to say it and then you correct me if I'm wrong. So responsible is the person who's actually going to do a certain task or thing. They're going to actually do it. The accountable is the person that ultimately is accountable and responsible. And those that may not be the same person, right? Consulted means as we're moving forward, that person who's accountable and making decisions, they're going to consult. These are people that need to be consulted, right? They may not have the ultimate decision, but you need to bring them into the loop. And then there's a set of people who just need to be informed, right? You don't ask them and all of that, but you keep them informed through the process. And I think that actually, forget an implementation for the moment. That's such a great tool in any organization around different functions, because usually when you have conflicts in an organization, it's because we don't know who's accountable. We don't know who has the authority. We don't know who's going to do that. And we kind of all make assumptions. So I just love that you use that. Did I get it right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for that, clarifying that. Setting objectives for implementation and defining the implementation timeline and schedule. Super important. Define clear, measurable objectives aligned with business goals to ensure focused implementation and avoid scope creep. Big thing for me in implementation. We define this, but you'd be amazed at how many people get outside they have that scope creep.
Yeah.
And it becomes very difficult to get to the finish line. Document and communicate realistic goals across all levels to maintain alignment with leadership vision and drive project success. Everybody needs to be on the same page, and everybody needs to know where the end result needs to be so that everybody's hitting that task on time and moving the ball. You'd be amazed at how many people do not communicate in the same home building company, and they do not know where they're at during implementation. It's very difficult to get to the finish line when they don't communicate. Develop a phased project schedule with clear milestones. We do that at Hyphen. We use a platform called Guide CX that clearly outlines a project and keeps us on track. And every one of our builders can see that and follow it and be able to manage those tasks and assign them to appropriate team members. Allow time for feedback, testing, and training, and maintain alignment between vendor and builder to avoid unrealistic go-live dates and reduce delays. Same thing, we test a ton and train a ton, and then we hold on to you guys a few days, a couple months actually after we do implementation go-lives to make sure that you guys continue to use the system as needed and continue training if needed.
Great. Well, quick question, is Guide CX a Hyphen product, or is that something kind of off the shelf that you use?
It's off the shelf.
Guide CX.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And it's a project platform.
Okay, interesting.
Yes. Executing process redesign and justifying overall investment. Map current and future state workflows. Y'all know best day to day what you're doing, so make sure you're mapping those workflows. Create process manuals. You know how you're operating and how that manual needs to be done. It is not typically in the implementation world to be able to create those. We can help you, but your day-to-day process is better than anybody. So do that. Prioritize simplification and automation, ensuring redesigned processes align with software capabilities. Avoid forcing the system to fit outdated workflows that no longer serve the business. You're purchasing a new software platform, or maybe you're a startup and you're purchasing this software, really make sure that you understand that you're going to find things in any software platform that you purchase that does not work with your business. And you're going to have to kind of shift and change a little bit. So make sure you're, changing that and making it work for you based on the system that you purchased. Build a strong business case with ROI analysis, highlighting cost savings, efficiency gains, and risk mitigation to justify the investment. We're here to make you guys more efficient. That's what we're here for, and that's why you're purchasing the software. So make sure you're building that strong case. Clearly communicate tangible financial and operational benefits to gain leadership buy-in and avoid underestimating long-term costs. Okay, setting and monitoring budget, facilitating data migration and testing. Establish a clear, well-tracked budget with defined categories and contingency funds, and ensure ongoing financial oversight to avoid surprise costs. We set a set amount of time and money when implementing a system. Just make sure that we stay on track so we keep that in budget. I think that's a big piece of implementation. Scope creep can definitely increase your budget when it comes to implementing. Begin data mapping early. I could reiterate this over and over again. If you don't start the day that you get your system and start early mapping, it becomes a mess at the end. So we really hit hard and heavy on map everything early, cleanse and validate all your data, and get that done. You can do that actually prior to buying any system. Start cleaning up all of your data and making sure that it's good so you don't have garbage in, garbage out in your new system. Develop comprehensive test cases based on real scenarios and conduct thorough user acceptance testing, UAT, with end user involvement. We do that heavily. I build an entire UAT system for each one of my clients with real-time data that's been built in your production site that helps you test real-time scenarios, go through what it's like to build out an entire job, what it's like to work with our scheduling platform, what it's like to work with sales, everything, so that we see firsthand what the system's doing before we ever get into the production side. Avoid rushed or last-minute efforts in budgeting, data migration and testing, as these can lead to costly errors, incomplete data, and missed system defects. And we do have, I go over this a lot, make sure you're really bringing in data that's good to be able to test with.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting, Amy. I mean, all the things that you're saying, in a way, this may sound like a huge laundry list of oh my gosh, all these things I need to do. These are actually best practices for how you should just be running your business anyway. So forget that you might be implementing a new system. This is good housekeeping, right? This is good, good management of the organization and the business. So, I think sometimes we make implementations harder because we lump all this stuff in with it when kind of we should be doing these things in general anyway, but we tend to catch them and get caught up when we're going to do implementations. So,
Okay, training. Training, and more training is essential. If I could just say that over and over again, and making sure that you have somebody that is actually really taking that training in. You'd be amazed at how many times I train somebody and then the next day they have no idea what I stated the day prior. It is so important to really pay attention to those during implementation and make that a continuous process. Learn the system and be able to train someone else on your team. We have a ton of people that come back to us thinking that we onboard employees, things like that. That's really up to y'all. We really want you guys to train. We train you, then you train everybody else. That's the way that it works. The systems and business processes are always evolving, and we don't always know what those are on your side. We know what they look like from our perspective, but y'all change on a day-to-day basis, and y'all all run so differently. It's kind of hard to believe that all these home builders don't run the same.
what?
Yeah, believe it or not. Develop role-based materials, conduct hands-on workshops in real-world scenarios, including proof of concept sessions with client data. I'm going to reiterate that a lot in this presentation because really using a UAT system to really, if you come up with an idea or you want to see if the system works away, you can really run through that and build this thing out several different ways to see which works for your company. Ongoing training is key to adapting to change, reinforcing knowledge, and overcoming resistance. We have a lot of resistance when we do implementation. They've been in the same system forever. They don't want to change, but you got to get them to want to change because we can't do that from an implementation standpoint. Especially in a constantly evolving environment. If you're expecting to know every detail pre-go live or master the system before using it, you're setting yourself up for a disappointment. Hands down, you're not going to know it, and you're not going to know everything day one. During go live, it's going to take months for you guys to get in there, really understand, all the different reporting, all the different things the system can do, and how to really bend and twist it the way you need it to. Examples of excellent collaboration from my perspective, process mapping workshops. We do a lot of that, making sure that builders and consultants work side by side to refine workflows. You guys need to do that. Build every kind of workflow you can and tweak those and change those over time if needed. Joint testing teams, really make sure that you have several people across the board validating the system. Telling you where, hey, we've got to bridge a gap here, that this isn't going to work for us. What do we need now to make the system really work for us? Data migration partnership, close coordination to ensure that the data's clean. Make sure you're bringing over good data. And I will say that 100 million times. I've been on y'all's side before, and vetting that data out before you migrate it is the best thing you'll ever do. Ongoing support and optimization. Collaboration doesn't stop at go live. Continuous partnership ensures the system evolves with the business. So I talk to builders. I've been with Hyphen 7 years. I talk to builders all the time and over again because things change on a day-to-day basis, especially with, from going from single family building to rent to own to multifamily. There's so many different facets of home building today that we have to stay on top of. So world success from my perspective, had a Florida builder, matter of fact, kind of funny that we're in Orlando and they're from Florida, but a standout example of collaboration, the project manager assigned the task effectively. They hit every deadline and delivered on time, successful go live with fully functioning solutions. Pretty much everything that they purchased from our system is up and running and was running at go live. And that can happen. There's some misconceptions that some people think you can't have more than one platform going live at a time. You can if you hit those tasks and you get them completed. Flexible project management with Guide CX. Our team uses Guide CX for project management and adapts its based on each builder's workflow. So we can tweak that based on you. We have a basic template, but y'all may be different and we may need to tweak that some. It allows us to do that, to keep you guys on track, add things that we need to add that may work for your company. Tools that drive process fidelity, project management, we use Guide CX. Process mapping, the mapping tool that we use at Hyphen to generate those workflows and build data import templates for us. We've kind of as a team have been creative in building, templates for our systems, and makes it very easy when you're mapping early, and it can create those templates for us. Testing environments, of course, we use UAT and prod sites all the time for that real-time environment to validate data. And training and documentation, we have an entire university. So that is really great. It's a central hub that holds all documentation for every one of our platforms. And we have training and certifications across all of our tools. So together, this collaboration framework and tool set form pretty much the backbone. Okay, and lastly, I came up with this because I come from the home building side. No one buys a home expecting it to be finished whenever, okay? Nobody. They want a clear timeline, a set closing date, the confidence that their investment's on track. The same standard should apply when you purchase software. ERP implementations are major business investments, and time is money, which all of you know. Delays don't just cost more, they create outdated, stagnant data that will need fixing later. If you wait for your implementation to be done in a year, you're going to be redoing the implementation. So when you purchase your software, get in there, get it done, just like you would when you're building a house. Get to the finish line, get it closed, get it done. And that's why every implementation should have a defined timeline and a clear path to go live. And I truly believe that. If you guys get in there and get it finished, you'll be successful.
Great. Oh, thanks, Amy. And I think so much of what you talked about, I mean, obviously you come from, kind of the Hyphen world most recently. These are best practices regardless of what solution or system. And again, some of this stuff is just good housekeeping. So hopefully some really good tips to take away. And I would love to have you just come organize something for me, because you are so organized and so buttoned up, and God forbid I would not stay on schedule. But anyway, thank you so much. All right, we'll turn it over to Monica.
Okay, yeah. So, hi, everyone. I am, as I said before, run the customer success department. So we're going to be talking about beyond the launch, so strategies for sustained post-go-live success. So, we do graduations, actually. So as you know, implementations is hard work, and you guys have met a major milestone by implementing a software into your company, and that's definitely something that should be celebrated. So we do a huge graduation, and it's funny because some builders are afraid of it because you've had this implementation team that's been holding your hand along the way, and they're there every time you call them. But you're ready. It's time for you to spread your wings and fly, little birdie, fly, right? But saying that, we don't expect you to go out there and know everything about the software, like Amy said. You're not going to. This is more like fly from kindergarten, not fly from, graduate school. There's still going to be a lot of learning going on and a lot of things that you're going to have to do to make sure that your company is fully implemented and adopting the software and that you're getting the most value out of it. So one of the things that we like to do is during our graduation, we celebrate, but we also say, remember why you bought the software in the beginning, right? Let's go back and revisit those goals and what your objectives were and what you were trying to achieve, and make sure that you're still on that path as we move forward. So just kind of on the side, the launch is not the end goal. It is a stepping stone to a long-term business transformation and value realization. Once the system is live, the real work starts in ensuring the system is adopted, optimized, and continuously improved. So it is a continual process. You will be with the software for a year, and once your team gets used to using it for a year, they're going to find that there's things the software can do that they weren't aware of because they hadn't had that skill level yet. So they'll start playing around with other things. And at that point, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but we'll get there. And we'll catch ourselves up. But at that point, it's always good to do reassessments as well, and then to go back and revisit. But just coming back, common challenges that we run into post-launch are some of the ones that I was talking about, is the user adoption. So yes, you've trained your team, you've had them at the table, you've seen them with the keystrokes, but you know there's a guy in the back of the room who's not listening. There's the one who's punching the buttons, but daydreaming about what they're going to do on Saturday. So they get back to their desk and they don't actually use the software, right? They do the old process and tell you they're using the software, but they're not.
What?
Has that ever happened before? I think so, right?
Oh my goodness.
So you want to make sure that you're addressing that. Another thing we see a lot of times is limited understanding of the full capabilities, which is what I talked to you about before. We cannot train you on every single thing the software can do in one 3-month, 6-month, 8-month session, even a year. It's going to take longer than that. Support overload. Again, this is okay. It's fine, obviously, when you want your team to ask questions and to be able to have support when they need it and that additional training and things, but they also need to fly on their own, if you will, and spend some time sort of discovering what the software can do within limits, of course, and then provide the additional support. So you want to have them comfortable to call support, but also feeling independent enough in the software that they know that they can experiment a bit to find the solutions that they need and to be more comfortable leveraging that solution. So beyond the launch, so without careful attention to post-launch, businesses can miss out on the full potential of their investment. And that's really important to me and to us. So we really believe that our customers do best when they use all the products they have well, and that means they need to understand them, they need to know how to use them, and they need to be trained on them, right? So we want to make sure that that's happening. Software can help you streamline your operations, obviously. And so when you're in implementation, you'll streamline these operations. You'll adopt the software to meet that process. But again, as you go through it, you're going to find there's other savings that you can realize in that process. And so you want to make sure you're attending to that. It improves decision making because it allows you to actually see your data clearly, which is really great. Because if you didn't have the software before, you weren't able to really understand how things were impacted by other things. So you can improve your decision making, drive efficiencies across departments. And so these are really the value drivers and the why, and should be some of the why that drove your decision in purchasing the new software that you're using. And we're talking not just ERPs, but we're also talking about other digital solutions, CRMs, any kind of software you have. There's a reason you bought it, and there's a value that you need to derive from it to justify the investment that you made in it, right? So you want to make sure that you're going in the right direction to do that. So you need to understand where you are and what's next post go live. So we want to make sure we're adopting good business processes, that there's offered advanced training for users. So again, the users are going to get to a point where they understand the software pretty well, but they need additional users, and you want to be able to do that. And then you're refining the system's configurations as your business needs evolve. And Amy kind of talked about that. You know your business best, and there's different configurations you can do in the system. So you want to modify your processes to meet your system and the way your system runs, but you can also modify your system to maximize your processes as well. And so you need to understand where does that fall and how you can make some of those changes. Focus on, and this is some examples. So focus on how to use the system to reach your business goals. So what is it that you're measuring? So for instance, like with a CRM, you're going to measure leads and how you nurture your leads and things like that. So what is your goal and how are you tracking that? And what do you really kind of want to focus on to show that you're having good success with your software? And these are just some strategies, and I'll go through these real quickly because I want to make sure we have enough time for Sheila to also share some of her insights as well. But again, Amy and we talked a lot about the team and making sure you have the right team. You have to have an executive sponsor. If your leadership is not believing in your software implementation, it's not going to happen. Again, there's a guy in the back of the room. He's never going to adopt the software. And if
Why
you don't,
is it always a guy?
I know. The
gals are paying attention, right?
They do, right?
And they're listening to Amy, Yeah.
Exactly.
I love you guys, but...
But you want to have an executive sponsor who continues to push home that this is something that we've invested in, is important to the company. Everybody needs to get on board because otherwise your department heads are not going to have that same weight when they go and they try to make sure their teams are adopting it. A departmental product champion, it doesn't have to be the leader of the department. It can be the person who's the most successful with the software. And that's what we find a lot in our Lasso implementations. We find a sales leader or just a salesperson who's very successful with leveraging a CRM to get sales. And they're demonstrating numbers. And they're not the leader of the department, but they are a huge product champion and a leader that your rest of your team needs to be following so they can see those same kinds of impacts. User groups are always very good to talk with other users within your company, but even outside your company, we do several of those. Cross-functional collaboration. So especially with the CRM, you're going through many, many different departments. And so you can streamline your accounting department, but how does that impact what's going on in purchasing or even in the production in the field? And if you're if you're collaborating across those departments, you could probably find things that you could do differently within each department that's more synergistic across the whole organization. And then, of course, if you have a need for an outside consultant, sometimes you get too close to the system and the process to see what the issues are. And it's always nice to have an outside consultant come in and do an assessment or an evaluation to make sure that you're on track and not missing anything. Create a post-launch product adoption plan. So not only do you have to have an implementation plan, but you also want to have a plan for what are you going to do under certain circumstances after you've launched the product. So your whole team needs to buy into this plan too. So you want to have them provide some insight to that. Make sure you're aligning your system optimization with your long-term business goals. So whatever your goal is, the system needs to be able to support that goal. And if something you're doing in your system isn't supporting that goal, then stop doing it, right? That's obviously not working for you. And so you want to make sure that you remember why you bought the software. What is your goal? What is your objective? And let's help us get there through the system versus, making the system be something that it's not or that you don't need. Create a realistic timeline for achievement. And then your plan should be drafted during implementation. So what we typically do after we do some graduation and some celebration, we talk to the team about let's do some check-ins too. So now you're not going to call the implementation team every single day. You're on your own. Let's see if you can do it, and we'll check back in 30 days because you're always going to find some kinks, loose screws here and there, and you need to kind of tie that up. And so we check back in 30 days. We check back again in 90 days. And then again, as I talked about before, sometimes it's sooner, sometimes it's not, but within a year, your team should be pretty used to the software. So let's check back in a year, and that's where we can do sort of a reset, right, and get you more ingrained and getting even more value than you had before. Continuous training, again, cannot hit training enough. You want to do the basic training refresher courses, especially for people who are kind of faking it in the back, so that you don't want to necessarily call them out, but you want to be able to provide opportunities for them to learn. So a lot of times what I'll do, like even with my own team, is we'll be looking at an Excel spreadsheet, and I'll ask them to do a pivot table. And instead of saying, you do that pivot table, I can kind of tell they don't know how to do a pivot table. So I'll do the pivot table and show them the process while we're doing it. So I'm not calling them out for not paying attention and not being trained up. I'm saying, here's this resource and here's how you do it. And if they know how to do it already, it's fine. But then that gives them a little bit of exposure there. So that's just an example of some basic training that you could do. New feature training, it's software, it's always changing. There's always different evolutions of the software. So you want to make sure you stay on top of that and train your team for that. Advanced training for those that are that catch on a lot quicker and can start leveraging other parts of the software. And as Amy said, it's not our job necessarily, to train your new employees, right? We do, I'm sure you do too, have resources that can help you with your new employees. But again, you've been in that software now for how many years since implementation? You know how your team should be using the software with the processes you have in place. So you need to have a new employee training onboarding program so they can be effective with your system. And then there's just a bunch of resources there that you can use, pretty much the same list as what we talked about of people that you want to have involved in different types of materials and things like that. Strategy 4, again, going back to optimizing processes, you want to conduct process audits and refinements every now and then. At a year is a really good time to do that, but talk to all the users, look at your processes, look how people are adopting it, look at the reports you're getting and things like that. Make sure that you're getting the best use out of your system. We do have an audit program where we have a list of things that we currently look at with our professional services team. I'm sure you guys probably have something similar. So you can always go back to your system provider to do something like that. Make sure you're taking advantage of the new features. Look for automation opportunities. So again, you were at a certain point when you adopted software, and always be looking for different ways that that software can help you automate things. So maybe you're still signing checks or still having approval papers go from this desk to that desk for approvals. There's something that you can do there to automate that. And then again, listen to your users and product champions. Your users know the system best because they're in it every day. So make sure you're listening to them and their feedback on how they're leveraging the system. And your product champions, I cannot stress enough how much you want to listen to those guys because, or ladies, because actually we'll say those are the ladies because the guys are in the back, right? We're paying attention.
Right.
Okay, I can say that, right? Anyway, but you want to listen to your product champions because they're going to help you out with getting better adoption across the board. Drive decision-making with system data and analytics, and I love data. That's my favorite thing, and when you can get your company to a point where you can manage your company from your data and make informed decisions, that's amazing. So don't fight the system. Set your system up according to best practices to make it easier to get to standard reports. And I'm sure Sheila's going to share a lot with us because they manage their company from data too. So make sure you're leveraging what you can for KPIs and all sorts of things. Again, coming back to you got into the system for a reason. Part of the reason is the access to the data and the analytics that you can have when you adopt a new system. So make sure that you're leveraging that and using that to make your decisions. Monitor system performance and optimization. So again, conduct regular health checks with your team. We do that actually regularly with our customers. We do twice a year where we'll send out just a health check. Like, have you hired new people? Are they trained? Is everybody okay? How would you grade your departments as far as usage of the system? Those kinds of things. So we can offer free training and support, but also try to figure out where is it that you need some more assistance to make sure you're getting the most out of software. And we talked about that, stay on top of system upgrades and enhancements because the software does continue to change and evolve no matter what software it is. So you want to make sure you're taking most advantage of that. Last thing I just wanted to cover, and this is just kind of, it's very colorful graphic, but I think it's really important real quick to just go through this because when you're implementing a system, it's not about the system, it's about the people, right? And your success is about getting those people to use the system properly. And in order to do that, you need to have several things in place. So what you'll see, there's those 6 columns. The first one is vision. You need to have a good vision for what you want to do, right? You and your team need to have the skills and the training in order to execute on that vision. Not only that, but you have to have the motivation and the buy-in. So that's about having that executive champion going in there and making sure that everybody's on board. They don't have to love it, but they have to have some motivation to move forward with the software, right? And get that implemented. And then they have to have the right resources. Again, this goes back to making sure that they have everything they need in order to be successful with this new system. And then an action plan. Amy and I both said action plan during implementation, action plan that we're going to talk about during sales, an action plan after implementation. Only when you have these 5 things will you really get the change that you're looking for within your organization. And so then what you'll see is when each of the next rows will show one of those pieces missing. And what's really cool is that if you follow the row, you can see like the second row, we're missing on our vision, your team is going to be very confused. What are we doing? Why are we doing this, right? If you are missing skills, your team is going to be very anxious because they know that they don't know how to do what you're asking them to do. Motivation, if they're missing the motivation, you're going to get the resistance, right? Because they don't know the why. You haven't convinced them that it's important to the company. Without the resources, they're going to get frustrated. And then without an action plan, you're going to just stumble. And there's going to be a lot of false starts. Your implementation is going to take a year, then 18 months, and you're going to re-implement and reload your data, and then it's just a lost cause. So that's all I've got for you today.
Perfect. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So now, this is kind of the exciting part. We get to hear from Sheila, who has gone through this and is managing that on behalf of French Brothers. So we'll just open it up, Sheila, to your observations and comments around this topic.
Wonderful. First, I want to thank you all for all of your incredible guidance. I wish I had had this panel before I started implementing. I learned a lot of these things the hard way. So really, I want to echo everything you guys have said. We use a little bit of different vocabulary, I think, in our company. We like to we use buy-in like you did. Buy-in is incredibly important. And I think one of the reasons we are successful with implementing stuff like this is targeting that one person who is going to spearhead the project, who's going to be using it, and leading up from that position, right? So in my position, I'm the one who's in that system all of the time, and I'm taking in all of that data, and I'm making sure that the right data comes out of it, and being able to have somebody who's strong in that position, who will lead up, who will give direction, who won't be afraid to let you know when something isn't working well. But also, one of the terms we use is paint done. So having that vision, having what looking good and smooth and operating looks like, so that everybody knows where they're headed, right? There's not a confusion. You're not all going different directions. And that alignment was key for a lot of our implementation. We've done a lot of restructuring since I've been there in the system, and that's kind of my biggest experience with implementing new software. So not necessarily new. Now we took on InSearch, which isn't necessarily a new software, but it's a new way of using the software that we already use. So we had to go through the process of rebuilding all of the guts on the back end, and that took a lot of being aligned and having those check-ins with your team regularly and making sure that everybody's doing the things that they went away from the meeting saying they were going to do. And being able to believe in your team to do that. That belief factor is so huge. If you've got one person in that back room whispering negativities and being stuck in their old ways, you're just not going to make any progress. You all have to be believing in the end goal, that painting done, and believing that there's going to be a better road ahead, even if the one you're on is really bumpy that you're working on. Yeah, company culture, huge. And I think that's why we're so successful with implementing, is how tight-knit we are and how well we can depend on each other, and that leading up factor is huge. For little voices to not be afraid to speak up. And I think it was huge for me with InSearch to be able to ask those questions, and a lot of people get in their fields. They feel like they've already been told how to do something, and they're afraid to ask again, and not being afraid to ask when something's not making sense, because a lot of the times you're going to hear all this information, and you need to be able to, once you get there in the process that you're working through and you have that aha moment, like I wonder, not being afraid to come back and be like, I know you've told me this already, but can you say it again, because I'm finally ready to hear it, right? That's a huge part of it. You can take in all of this information and see all these really bright, shiny things that you want, but if you're not ready for it, if you're not at that stage of adopting it, then it's not going to make any sense, and not being afraid to circle back when you are ready for that information, and having hungry people. Put some hungry people on that team, people who want to learn, who are there for the fight and look forward to that kind of stuff.
Really some good words of wisdom. And again, it just keeps hitting me that that's kind of the key to a successful business, right? A good culture, and finding those hungry people and moving forward. It's just kind of an interesting, that's kind of keeps coming up for me. Great. All right. Well, I think we are a wrap in terms of today. Thank you so much for your attention and time, even those guys in the back that we like to pick on all the time. But hopefully these are some really good best practices that you can take back regardless of what process you're going through or system. And I think the key is, at some point, it's beyond a system implementation. It's just how you do your business, right? It is a part of what you're doing. It's not this separate thing over here. So anyway, I will let you go on to your next adventure, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.